6, maybe. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Live Before Lock Showdown edition, little Raiders Rams action. So an NFL team against the non-NFL team, but still a lot of money to be won today. And we're happy to have you guys with us, breaking it all down. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughran_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Joined, as always, by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. Hey, been a while, man.
Yeah, on these Live Before Lock shows, glad to have a 3-person show. Glad to have you here. And unlike one of the teams on this slate, we have a quarterback on this show. So happy to have you, Lofty. And of course, the Showdown Shaman himself. I mean, happy to hear about your knowledge. This one is a doozy to break down. Neil
Orfield getting the beer before the... Neil has very weird... Can we talk about this for a second? His pre-show routine.
Yeah, no, ritual. This is not a routine. This is...
You're right. It is
a ritual.
You know what? You're right. It is absolutely a ritual. Yeah. Yeah. Like a junkie cooking up a fix.
Do you want to hear more? Are you gonna tell them what my routine is, or are you gonna?
Well, I won't go into full detail because I know sometimes your routine differs a little bit.
People don't need to know about all of my routine.
Right. No, I wouldn't do you dirty like that.
Yeah.
And no, he's not. You know, don't get any crazy.
Yeah, we're not telling
really Neil to turn
taking this the wrong way.
Get your minds out of the gutter.
Yeah.
We're not. He's not. Who is that guy on CNN?
Oh, I remember that. One thing that you guys don't know is I actually have a rule for myself before a show, like an hour before we go live. That's where I cut off. I don't eat or drink anything within an hour of a show.
Really?
So that I won't have to go to the bathroom, because I know I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom. Even if I just feel it a little bit, I'm gonna it's gonna be on my mind during the show. So I just make sure I don't eat or drink anything for an hour before the show, and then of course I grab my beer to have during the show. Yeah. And yes, I always go to the bathroom last minute.
Yeah, he always
I'm
does.
just peeing.
The timing is really where it's at. Yeah.
If you ever wonder why the show starts late, I can tell you, Matt can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, it's because Neil is taking a leak or filling up a beer, which is funny because he comes on, says what's up, talks for a second, and then always 6:58. It's like, I'll be right back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm usually just a minute. I'm usually here right on time. I'm ready to go most of the time. But yes, it's a last minute thing for me. Because again, I don't want to have to go during the show. I want to be able to fully concentrate, not worry about my bladder. But I am ready. I'm ready now to talk about this game. And of course, I know exactly who's going to play at every position and who's going to get the ball thrown to them. This game is a mess. This game is really hard to predict. I think we're all on the same page there. It's going to be a tough one to talk about, but we're going to do our best.
Yeah, we are, man. That situation's one more thing. So you won't drink water throughout a show or anything?
During a show, I will. So it's the hour before the show. But then once the show starts, that's like that. Okay, now I can have a sip of my beer.
I guess I have a weird. It's not a ritual or a routine, but it's definitely like a habit. Even if I don't want to, I kill 1.5 bottles of water every show.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a decent amount, especially when you have 3 I probably drink 8-9 bottles of water a day. Probably excessive. But when I'm doing shows, I don't know what it is. I always need to be doing something, Anyway, we're doing something right now. Talking football. Brutal game, but a fun one. I'm actually excited to get into this. Matt Kajeski and I went team by team earlier today. We'll go position by position, mix it up a little bit here on Live Before Lock. But before we do, Matt, I'd say we're happy to have everyone here, and we'd love for them to hit that thumbs up.
I would say so. I think it makes a big difference for the, would you say YouTube overlords?
I would almost say that everyone that is yet to do so should atone for their sins and hit that thumbs up. And I think Neil would say that he has faith in the people. I mean, he will patronize them, but he has faith in the people.
I know that most of these guys, at least half, are capable of finding that thumbs up on their screen and clicking it. At least half of our audience is capable of doing that.
One of the best bits that we have, I got to tell you. All right, let's get into this. Quarterback position. Matt, let's kick it off with you here. We'll start in the easy spot. And we try to avoid making this a boring show where we're just like, yeah, I think Derek Carr makes sense. we want to give you guys information on actually like how are we structuring lineups? Like where Derek Carr fits. Is he better at captain? Is he better at flex? What lineups can you build with him? What are you looking to stack with him? So I just wanted to preface that, but the floor is yours.
Well, look, there's only one team on this slate who we have certainty who is supposed to play quarterback for all 4 quarters. We were kind of going back and forth before Neil's ritual, and we were saying that maybe this Rams team at 3-9 right now is just in full preseason mode. Yes, they don't have their first round pick, but they are still trying to evaluate talent more than trying to win games, or so we think. I think it's very possible that both Wolford and Mayfield played, which means Carr is going to be incredibly, incredibly popular. I still think that just single player stacks are the best way to do this. If you look at the tools, Carr actually has positive leverage both in the flex spot and the captain spot. So you're going to get to him if his ownership's around 50%. I worry that his ownership is going to spike as we get less and less certainty on the other side at the quarterback position, up to something like 75 or 80%. Then we need to reevaluate.
Yeah, that's a good question, right? What does the uncertainty at quarterback for the Rams do to Derek Carr's ownership? And honestly, not just Derek Carr, but all of these higher priced players, Neil, because it's taking one guy that's around 9K, not out of the player pool. You can still play him, but it's definitely gonna suppress his ownership a lot. I'm talking John Wolford.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It is going to. So that's what we were talking about before I did my ritual. When we talked briefly, I was saying I would have a lot of interest in John Wolford in this game. I do think that he is going to get very little ownership. It's just as I'm looking at the news, I'm less and less confident that John Wolford is starting. We're seeing that Baker Mayfield is getting reps with the starters. There is obviously the threat, as Matt says, that they're just going to be evaluating talent and playing each of these guys half the game. So I'm not all that confident in it. But honestly, I think John Wolford is going to be one of the lowest owned quarterbacks we've seen all year. So I'm monitoring news pretty closely. I'm just updating Twitter constantly, trying to see if we're getting any more news about, okay, now Wolford is throw into the starters, that kind of stuff. I haven't seen anything suggesting yet that John Wolford is going to start. We might not get news who's starting this game, which would be a huge bummer for me. If we get news sometime during the show that John Wolford is going to be starting, I'm going to treat him like he's a full go. I'm going to treat him like he is the starting quarterback, because I don't think the field is going to get there. I think all of the field is thinking, this might be a timeshare, and John Wolford's not that good anyway. It's easy to not play him. I just don't want to take that risk. I think a lot of people are going to be thinking that way and just fading John Wolford. And to me, that's an opportunity to play one of the 2 quarterbacks on a single game slate at very low ownership. So if we see that Wolford is starting, I'm going to have a lot of interest in him. But as you said, yes, I agree with you. Getting back to your point, which was, yes, it's going to raise the ownership on all of the other expensive players on the slate. I think I think all these guys are naturally going to get a lot of ownership anyway, just looking at our projections. I mean, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, the top 3 projected plays on the slate by a wide margin. So I think these guys are going to get a lot of ownership anyway. But if people don't want to play Wolford, they're going to get even more steam. So yeah, those guys, they're going to be owned, and honestly, they probably should be.
Matt mentioned before the show that it's almost like they're playing in preseason fashion. Matt, can we just for a minute, can we address how insane it is that this guy was on a flight to LA 2 days ago? He had the playbook, he was studying it on the flight, and now he's up to speed. I mean, look, I know he's been in the league a little while, but you just you learned the offense as an NFL quarterback in essentially less than 2 days. That seems preposterous, but here we are that Baker Mayfield could be getting opportunities, which leads me to think that what Neil said is probably right. If John Wolford starts, I have to think that he's probably the guy. It just seems so odd that Baker Mayfield would come. I think it's very unlikely, and famous last words, that Baker Mayfield starts tonight.
I think that's extremely fair. It is still possible based on what we know. And I heard what was very difficult is at the same time they were trying to get him the playbook, they were trying to restart those commercials where he protects his new house, but Matthew Stafford is going to be there as well. It's going to be a whole commercial deal. I'm joking. But ultimately, I do think that Baker Mayfield has the capability of learning the play calls, learning the formations and the first reads. He cannot learn the nuances, the extra reads, the things where they need to be on the same page as a receiver. You literally cannot do that. But I also remember a Baker Mayfield who came in the third game of his career, basically winging it. And that was kind of the best version of Baker Mayfield we saw. So I think maybe a less cerebral and more just letting it fly Baker Mayfield might actually be helpful. And ultimately, this is about Sean McVay and him getting on the same page. Again, more like a preseason game than any sort of, we have to win this game now. I'm sure they would like to, but if we see him on the field, that's what I think the expectations should be.
So if he starts, how much interest do you? I have to pose the question, even though I feel stupid even asking it, but maybe he does, and maybe we have to talk about it.
Look, the only thing that I feel like Wolford has no ceiling if he even plays the whole game. You know, I think someone said it in chat, is Wolford played a whole game last week and scored all of 8 fantasy points. That's possible
Look at
again
his pass
today.
Catchers.
Hey, I'm not saying I blame him.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, like, it. The whole situation sucks.
It absolutely does, and it also, I would feel like I would take it. I would say, hey, maybe you want to take a large field tournament chance on a player like Baker Mayfield if he had a player like Cooper Kupp, a first read on all these plays he barely knows. That would be like, well, I'm just gonna try to wing it to him and see what happens, but. He doesn't. He has Ben Skoranek. He has just a mess of receiving options and no one that they're really using at any large amount. So I think Baker Mayfield is close to unplayable. Again, we've seen weirder things happen in showdown slates, but he's not a good value tonight.
All right, Neil, you said you like John Wolford if he starts, right?
Yep, I did say that.
What if Baker starts?
Same thing. Honestly, I think if they name a starter, I think if they name Baker Mayfield as a starter, I think that means that they intend to see what they have, if they can make things work with Baker Mayfield. So if Baker Mayfield starts, I would have some interest in him. I'd have a lot more interest I'd have less interest in Baker Mayfield if he starts than I would have in John Wolford if he starts, just because yeah, John Wolford has had some bad games, but we know that he can do a lot more on the ground. He averaged nearly 50 yards per game rushing in college. His first NFL start, he rushed like 6 times for 56 yards. So we know that John Wolford has a little bit more rushing upside. And I think that we could see him, rush for, he has a little bit of a higher floor, and I think maybe higher ceiling than maybe not a higher ceiling, because I think Baker Mayfield has the ability to throw for multiple touchdowns against a bad defense like this. But I think John Wolford's floor is probably higher if he starts, and ceiling is similar to Baker Mayfield just because of the rushing upside. And I think John Wolford, you could play in a flex spot without any pass catchers as well.
Where are you at on Derek Carr? I know Matt talked about Carr. We went straight to Wolford with you. Where are you at on Derek Carr today?
Yeah, I mean, I like Derek Carr quite a bit. You look at our tools, he looks like he's underowned in both the captain spot and the util spot. We've got him at 9% projected ownership in the captain spot, 10% optimal, 42% util ownership, 46% optimal. So positive leverage on Derek Carr in both spots. He's not a guy who, typically who puts up a ton of big games. He doesn't put up a ton of huge scores, but you don't really need him to in a game like this where probably it's going to be a low scoring game. There's not going to be a lot of huge scores. Derek Carr projects really well. I think he's probably going to throw for a couple touchdowns. So I like Derek Carr quite a bit.
Okay.
Neil, I have a question for you. What if this ownership is something for Carr is something like 70%, 65 to 70%. So a little bit higher than we expect right now, but because there's still uncertainty at the Rams quarterback position, there's more and more steam for Derek Carr. What happens, or from a strategy standpoint, how should people think about it if it does get steamed up to that level?
Yeah, so that definitely does change things quite a bit. So you're saying like 70% overall?
Overall.
Okay, yeah. So we've got him projected for like 51%. If he got up to 70%, it's hard because then I would be, that's approximately, so we have him optimal 56% of the time. So he would be over-owned if he gets to 70% optimal. I would probably come down on my ownership. I'd still like him quite a bit as a play. I'd still probably want him probably then in about half of my lineups as opposed to like the 70 or 80% that I'm going to have. Most likely the way things are right now, I'm probably going to get to 70 or 80%. I would probably want to cut that back to 50 to 60% if he does get up to 70% ownership, because at that point he would be a negative leverage play.
And to be clear, we're talking 70%, excuse me, 70% optimal in the utility or in or no, we have him.
Where's
combining
both if he gets to that much ownership.
Yeah, I'm looking at, dude, I still don't think, you think I guess he could get to 70 because we have Wolford at what, 41, 42% right now.
I actually think it's a very good hypothetical to pose, because I think it is very likely that we do get Derek Carr at higher ownership than we're projecting, because I think this is a weird game where people are going to be afraid to play either Wolford or Mayfield, especially if we don't get news on the starter. So I think that's a really good hypothetical, because it's pretty likely that we do get higher ownership than we're anticipating right now.
We're definitely going to have to dig deep into how to get different on this slate, because I think you're going to see a lot, like, especially if we don't have any real clarification. If it's like John Wolford will start, but Baker Mayfield will play, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility that we get a report like that. We're going to have to talk about ways to get different. I don't think it will be John. Can we at least agree that John Wolford needs 4 quarters to be viable? Or do you not think so, Neil? Because this guy in 60 minutes, generally speaking, he needs 8 quarters usually, but on a showdown slate,
yeah,
you would feel a lot more comfortable knowing that like another quarterback wasn't breathing down his neck.
So I will agree with you that I would not play John Wolford if I go into this expecting, if they say like these guys are going to split and they're going to play half the game each, I wouldn't play John Wolford or Baker Mayfield. I think that he could get it done just because this is a bad Raiders defense, and just the dynamics of the way DraftKings lineups are built. You need to have somebody from the Rams. And I think with his rushing upside, in one half, he could have 50 rushing yards in that half, maybe throw for 1 touchdown. And that would be enough likely in this game, just because the Rams might not score a lot of points. And so if you rushed for in that half, 50 yards through for 1 touchdown, that might be enough for Wolford to be optimal. He might put up 11 fantasy points, which would obviously be an outlier for him, but it's within his range of possibilities. So like he, could get it done in a half, but obviously it's not something that I would bet on if we got that news.
Matt, same question to you there.
So I don't think Wolford has that much of a ceiling at all. That's sort of what I posited at the beginning. I think that in a game where they were in comeback mode for almost the entire second half, he still only threw 26 times. And he had a 53% completion percentage. 178 passing yards. I don't want to put too much on 1 week, but this is a guy who has never averaged more than 13 fantasy points in a season. And ultimately, I feel like we know who he is. I don't want to bet on him at the captain spot at all, like I usually do. The usual caveat, quarterback on a 1-game slate, is not applying to me for him tonight. I just don't like it.
I would like Bryce Perkins so much more.
With the rushing upside, yes.
Like so much more. Because go ahead.
So Bryce Perkins obviously has a great amount of rushing upside, but as I'm saying, John Wolford rushed for nearly 50 yards per game in college, his last 2 seasons. And then he came in his first game in the NFL, rushed for 56 yards. So I think that he has, maybe not quite to the same extent, but that's part of the reason I like Wolford is it's a soft defense, and he has shown some rushing upside in the past. So I think that kind of bolsters his floor and ceiling a little bit. I guess his floor isn't that high. If we just saw him score 8 fantasy points in a full game, maybe the floor isn't that high, but I think that he has some. I guess we disagree that I think that he has a 22 fantasy point game in his range of outcomes, even if it's not like this scenario.
Well, Neil, you are the showdown shaman.
That doesn't mean that I'm good at predicting football. Matt probably is better at predicting football than I'm just saying, just because I expect him to be so low owned that I think that's the reason. I wouldn't want to play John Wolford if he's getting 40 to 50% ownership. I just think that we could see like surprisingly low ownership.
Just straight game theory is what
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, boys. I knew we'd take a little time on quarterback. Normally we'd never spend this much time on that position. Just 2 players. Well, it might be 3. We'll keep, and listen, if any of us are talking if we get that news and the person or whatever talking, just interrupt whoever it is, please. Because all of us can be long-winded at times. It might be 7 minutes by the time the news breaks to the time one of us is alerted to it. So just feel free to interrupt if whoever sees it, and then we will circle back quickly and just give our final thoughts there.
Actually, since you said to interrupt you of this game, I just want to say, so this is
I didn't mean now, Neil.
So I just want to say, what's her name? Man, I don't even follow her. Somebody who is Jordan Rourke, I want to say, was posting earlier. And the news that she was posting like 6 hours ago was, if John Wolford is active, Baker Mayfield would only play in an emergency situation. I want to find the tweets now, because this is what, as I was trying to find this information earlier, this is what a Rams reporter was saying, and it just occurred to me that this was so we might already. I think they named Wolford the starter potentially, assuming that he's okay. Here she is, Jordan Rodriguez.
Oh yeah. She's definitely one of the bigger Rams beat reporters. Honestly, that's the most rational thing. So I'm going to say that's the most likely outcome. We're probably getting 4 quarters of Wolford now that he's active, but also he's clearly not 100% either. So I just think there's a possibility there's a total of 13 fantasy points, and it may be spread between 2 Rams quarterbacks.
Yeah,
it's certainly possible.
It just seems so nuts that Mayfield would play after 2 days, but we'll see. And it's not like he's dynamic with rushing upside where you can use him just like in certain packages, like just certain, we'll get him out there. Remember they did Jalen Hurts like that in his rookie season. Remember? You see it once in a while. Taysom Hill, like he's
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, right. This is Baker. Like, come on. It doesn't make any sense. All right. Running back. This is actually kind of fun because you have Josh Jacobs and then you have Cam Akers, who, well, I'll get there in a second. Before we do, though, we got to shout out our sponsor, No House Advantage, for a number of reasons. One, you get a $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up there, but that's just scratching the surface, tip of the iceberg shit here. If you're really looking to actually, and Mike, pull up the overlay. Can I get an overlay report? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to explain to you guys why No House Advantage, if it's available to you, that everybody should be playing there. Because this clearly, the more people sign up, this won't last forever. But how filled are we out of? Where are we at? Matt, 29% with 45 minutes till kickoff, and it's still 10K up top.
I was thinking about this earlier. They know over at No House Advantage what they're doing. Of course. They know that it
won't last forever. This will not last forever.
They know that they could make the contest smaller, but they want you to take advantage of the platform while they're getting started out. And it looks awesome over there. It's a great place to play. There are multiple ways to play. It's just a really cool time to get into the action, plus the awesome offer from Stokastic.
I remember when Yahoo was doing this. Remember they were doing all like the crazy rake-free contests and everyone wins stuff. If you weren't playing over there, then you were nuts because it was legit free money. So if you want to check it out, No House Advantage, link is in the description. Link is in chat. If you use those links, you get a $50 first match deposit bonus. Plus all the tools that we have that Alex Baker, Awesome himself, built for No House Advantage, the optimal lineup tool, the No House Advantage player prop projections, they're all free over at Stokastic. So you've got that at your disposal without having to pay a penny into it. All you're doing is building lineups as you would anywhere else, except in this case, there's no salary cap. You're just taking props, right? The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. There's no learning curve here is what I'll tell you. Like there's no significant learning curve where you like need to study a million. Any research you're doing, any shows you're watching, all that information is entirely applicable over at No House Advantage. So yeah, 29% filled. Check it out. Links in the description. Link is in chat. And if you wanted to play against the house there, they have a cool format. You play against the house, hit all your picks, you 21x your entry. So a lot of different ways to make some money over there. No House Advantage, sponsor of the Showdown Live Before Lock show for Thursday Night Football, Week 14. All right, let's go. Running backs, Neil, Josh Jacobs, leads the league in rushing yards. There were people that were say, like, get this guy out of here. He stinks. Get him out of here. I'm of two thoughts. One, that was silly. We didn't give him enough time to develop. But two, you go ahead and you pay this guy big money, you'll probably regret it, as is the case with most running backs that you want to give a ton of work to for years to come. But anyway, my 2 cents aside, what are your thoughts on Jacobs?
Yeah, I mean, I did not draft him much in best ball, and that is one of my bigger regrets of the best
Me
ball
too.
season. He fell so low, and it was still like Josh Jacobs. Like they just brought in Zamir White. They clearly want to play Zamir White. Kenyon Drake is there splitting carries with him. Like clearly don't. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Now we know Josh Jacobs is the guy. He's just a workhorse. He's just been incredible all year. He's involved in the passing game. Gets high volume in the running game as well. He's just all facets of the offense. Josh Jacobs is the guy. One thing I will say, he is coming into this game with both a quad and a calf injury. He came in questionable. He is playing, so presumably he's doing good at this point, but you never know. He could re-aggravate that injury. So there's that one kind of wrinkle in Josh Jacobs, but he's playing. Typically, if a guy's playing, I'm going to, for the most part, assume that they are healthy. So I'm going to be playing Josh Jacobs in the majority of my lineups today.
Matt, would you pay Josh Jacobs?
No. From a real football standpoint,
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate to be like so strict numbers, but you can't give a running back a second contract.
I agree.
If I'm also being honest, this is exactly what I would do with a running back on their final year who had first round draft capital and the talent that Josh Jacobs had. And I think one of the things that we got wrong is maybe the signal was correct, but we were just a year early on what the signal would be. Maybe they're going to be an RBBC next year when they don't have a clear running back one after letting Josh Jacobs go. But we've seen this many times before where quality players just run there until the wheels fall off for their first team so they can earn a contract with the second. It's so how that works out. Hey, tonight, I think you can absolutely play him, whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel. He's obviously a great play. Running backs with the questionable tag do tend to underperform their projections slightly. But look, this Raiders team is producing 20 fantasy point performances like no other team in the NFL right now, and we know who they're usually from, Jacobs or Adams.
Tell you, if they end up paying him, we've seen how holdouts have worked for running backs in recent memory. Like Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, typically doesn't end that well. So I don't know. It's a fascinating conversation to have, but one for maybe on the marathon matchup show when we have the time at our disposal. I just don't see any way to, like, Neil, when we're talking about builds today, there's ways to get different. You know, you've already talked about John Walford, and there's other spots too, especially when you have a Rams team with just a heap of, you know, kind of cast-offs who are occupying space in that offense. That sounded mean. I'm sure they're great people, but you get my point, right? We're talking strictly from a number standpoint. How many lineups are you going to have that don't, in some capacity, whether it's captain, not captain, that don't have both Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams? Because it's not hard to fit them.
Yeah, that was nicer than I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to say a heap of trash, and I was not going to disagree with you.
Oh, come on, Neil.
I mean, these guys are much better than I am at football, so I won't call them a heap of trash.
Well, you said you could throw 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said 12 touchdowns. If you give me,
wait, what?
Season. No, I didn't say that.
I'm joking.
Oh.
He asked if you could throw as many touchdowns or more touchdowns than as many or more.
I think as many as you have bathrooms in your home.
Right. And I said, there's no way I could throw 3 touchdowns. Neil thinks he could throw 2 touchdowns.
I was iffy on 2. I said, so the hypothesis, Savoca, is you get to start every single game. You're guaranteed to start every game for a full season. You cannot get hurt. I also added in that I'm playing on the Niners, and I'm not theorizing that I'm going to be able to like throw a long perfect pass. I'm just saying I could throw it short, you know, to Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel, and throughout the season, I think probably maybe 2 of them could get there. I think there's some possibility at least, but I said I would definitely take the over on 0.5, provided I get a full season.
So let me get this straight in this hypothetical. We can't get injured, but we can still get pummeled every play.
We can.
Because we still have to have the thought processing of getting the ball out within 3 seconds, which I think all of us are completely overrating our ability to do. Those would be the most terrifying 3 seconds of our entire life.
Of course. I said
over and over.
Yeah. I mean, even if you face the Texans every week, I still think it could be tough. So our friend Sammy Knoll said, you saw that, Neil?
Yep. So I'm was just seeing on Twitter. So he posted something from the Thursday Night Football crew.
And good looking out, Matt. Thanks.
Prime Video. Yeah, I appreciate that, Matt. That they are saying that they expect Baker to start, but we don't have anything official right now. I hate that.
Right. But then he said he quoted two people. We don't know who it was because he sent us a video that said, I just had a Rams source tell me he expects Baker Mayfield to start. And then the other quote was, I just got word from another Rams source that said there's an outside chance Wolford could start depending on how he feels. Oh, that's outside chance. So right now, are we looking? I
think we're looking at Baker starting is how I'm reading this.
Oh my word. Are they Kyle Shanahaning this too? Like, because they don't really have to tell us, they're just going to like BS the media part of it.
Yeah, this is crazy.
I hate this so much.
All right. Well, we have what? 37 minutes.
Now Winky Crest, and I have no idea where this comes from, but Winky Crest, another person I follow on Twitter who's a big Rams fan,
he's
looking
a great
like
guy.
Wolford is starting. Wow. I don't know where Winky got this from. Maybe I'll ask him for a source.
Baker Mayfield. Oh, Baker Mayfield's 9K. So it's not even like you're getting backup quarterback salary on.
Not at all.
Neil, I'm going to be chatting with you throughout this entire game if Baker starts and you're overweight on him. It's going to be fun.
If I'm
whether it goes well
Baker,
or not well.
Yeah. I really want it to be Wolford, to be honest. I want Wolford to start. I feel somehow more confident playing Wolford than Baker Mayfield. I don't know that I should though.
I kind of get it.
Well, Baker Mayfield's been on the team for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally get it.
Yeah. 40. So he probably got to the facility for the first time. What?
Let me give you one more thing.
ago?
Let me give you one more thing. So Matt Smith, Sammy Knoll, friend of mine on Twitter, says Winky's at the game and says Wolford is warming up with the ones.
My God.
It's as good as we can get, I suppose.
And credit to you for going to a Rams game at this point. But
he's a big Rams fan. Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. Well, not really. They're reigning Super Bowl champs, but all right, let's hit some super chats. Maybe we'll get some more news. How about, our buddy Jorge. What's up, brother? If Baker starts, I'm guessing Stokastic projection will be updated because currently Baker has 0 points on a projection. Yeah, and he should right now. Like, it'll definitely be updated. Yes. Honestly, though, at this point, like if we get news real close to game time, and it's not updated, I mean, you could actually update that pretty quickly. But I'm not saying I'm not saying use Wolford as a proxy for him, because Wolford's probably projected higher. I don't know, but it can't be that far off, right, guys? Can't be that.
That's
far
exactly what I would do.
Yeah,
especially if you're building lineups like Neil and you're leaving salary on the table. And that 200 difference doesn't matter at all.
Because same price, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
the slight difference for me is I would allow for John Wolford in the flex without any pass catchers in some lineups in a 150 set. I would not do that for Baker Mayfield. So there's the only real difference between the two of them.
Because of the rushing, right?
Because of and also in the captain spot, I would be more likely to allow for John Wolford in the captain spot with just one pass catcher as opposed to two. But yes, otherwise pretty much the exact same thing.
And Jorge just gifted 20 DFS or Stokastic subs at memberships here. You're the man, dude. You're the man. There's a lot of good people out there. Jorge saying Merry Christmas to everybody in advance, or Happy Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, whatever it is you celebrate. Tyler, Neil, you're excited for a double Q. Are you excited for a double QB stack for the Rams?
I will not be doing any double QB stacks. Yeah, that's a mistake that I've done by accident in the past. If you want to play some lineups with both, if you want to have both Baker Mayfield and John Wolford in your set, make sure that you group them out, I would say.
Vinny says, and there's a super chat. Thanks, Vinny. Makes Wolford a solid fade. Yeah, that was a question. Ignore Baker, fade Wolford, and let it ride. Matt,
I'm with you, Vinny.
What's that?
I'm with you.
I was going to say, I feel like you and I are probably more aligned on this one. But this is good. This is why we have 3-man booth here. Neil likes the ownership. Just the overall game theory on this leads him to get to more John Wolford. But okay. We had a couple more here. Mike, can you send me any that I missed, please? The chat's going quick. I missed some from earlier. Sam Pierce, best captain for large field that's not Carr, Akers, Jacobs, or Adams. Both Raiders. Oh, sorry, he's saying both teams. Raiders defense to me, I think, is like fine captain. Mac Hollins. I know we have some negative. Well, no, I guess slight negative leverage slight positive leverage. As a matter of fact, what do you guys have Because I think if Mac Hollins, if like Adams and Jacobs don't get monster games, Matt said before the show that this offense is so heavily concentrated that Mac Hollins is kind of the only other guy other than some dink and dunk shit to Foster Moreau that is going to get there. So Matt, your answer to that question, this will help anybody.
The skilled player I would choose is Mac Hollins. In the largest of large field tournaments, it would be Brandon Powell because of his high leverage score. But the answer might just be one of the kickers or defenses.
Okay. Yeah. Raiders defense. Dude, I was hoping Baker would start. Just straight pick 6 out of the gate. What about you, Neil?
Yeah, also Daniel Carlson looks really good. 2.6% projected ownership at captain, 5.3% optimal. I need to give you guys an update though, because so Matt just pointed out that Winky now posted on Twitter. We're just going off Winky's Twitter feed right now. Now Baker taking the snaps LMAO. So,
dude,
we don't know shit.
These guys are going to split snaps in the sense of like every snap, one of them is going to come in for the other.
Yeah, that'd be the worst thing I've ever seen.
This is insane.
They're doing the hot hand. This is hilarious.
This is insane. This is truly insane. All right. What do we had one more super chat, I think. No, I got that. I thought there was one before that, Mike, if you can find it. If not, that's cool. And I appreciate all you guys. We got over 2,000 watching with us right now. Breaking down maybe the oddest game of the year just based on the quarterback.
I'd say so.
Yeah. Because it's not just which quarterback starts. It's does the quarterback who's been here for, 2 days start. And Zoot says sources, Amazon execs want Baker for the vibe. Could be, man. I don't know. All right. Other side of this one, Neil. Cam Akers, because Josh Jacobs is pretty straightforward. Cam Akers interest you at all?
Yeah, I have some interest in Cam Akers. I mean, this Raiders defense is quite bad. The Rams would be wise to not throw the ball much in this game. If they can slow down the clock a little bit and just keep the ball on the ground. I think Cam Akers, is getting good volume. He looks good in this spot, projected for just 20% ownership. His price tag is high enough that it's driving people away because we've all seen how bad Cam Akers is. Like he's just not a great NFL running back, but looks okay. Yeah, he actually, as I'm looking at the tools, he actually has negative leverage in the tools. 4% projected ownership in the captain spot, 2.2% chance of being optimal, 21% ownership in the util spot, 19% chance of being optimal. So he doesn't look great in the tools. For somebody like me who's playing a large field GPP and leaving money on the table, I think that he is a player that is live to put up a big score and allow you to leave money on the table. So I still think that he makes sense for those of us who are trying to get different, leave some salary on the table. But I mean, it's worth noting that he does have negative leverage in the tool. So on 10,000 simulations based on projections, allowing for the full salary, he's actually looking a little over-owned.
Matt, things have come full circle for Cam Akers. Benched in the first quarter of week 1. McVay says he has to earn it. Then he plays second fiddle to Henderson. Then Henderson, and then he wants a trade, and they're like, sorry, you're just not going to play. And then Henderson gets released, and then Akers plays 72% of snaps 2 weeks after that.
And they also elevated Malcolm Brown to the roster tonight. I don't know if that makes a big difference, but it does just add one more piece to this puzzle, which is already difficult.
I think he was there. I think they elevated him last week too, didn't they?
Yeah, he only played special teams last week.
Okay, yeah.
But we've seen Malcolm Brown have roles outside of that before.
He can be the goal line back.
The goal line vultures of the past, for sure. Look, in general, I'm still going with the base rate of you fade Achilles tears at this point. And I don't think Cam Akers is an explosive player. Can he fall into the end zone in this weird Thursday night one-gamer? Absolutely. But if you have Kyron Williams there and you have Malcolm Brown, it just lowers the probability. Neil mentioned it right off the top. The reason you could raise it just a little bit is because there's a chance Akers gets over that 67% threshold where he's like pretty good from an opportunity standpoint. And the Raiders are 29th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position.
Quick thoughts for you guys on any backups here?
Yeah, so we talked about Josh Jacobs, how great of a play he is, but we also mentioned that he does come in with both a calf and a thigh injury, a quad injury and a calf injury. 2 injuries makes it a little bit likelier he's going to re-aggravate one, right? And he's going to be running a little bit differently than he normally would, maybe aggravate something else. So I think that there is increased opportunity for Josh Jacobs to hurt himself here, which does make me a little bit more interested in Amir Abdullah. I think would be the back that would most likely take over if Josh Jacobs were hurt. So I do have a little bit of interest in Amir Abdullah at 3,000. The price tag obviously too high for his usual role, but add in blowout risk, injury risk, I think I'd be above the 8% we're projecting for the field. And then Zamir White, I don't think would be next in line if we lose Jacobs, but he would at least get blowout runs. So, he's viable at 4% ownership, 1,200. I think I as I was writing my article, I'm like, there are no great options at really low ownership. Like usually I'm looking for guys that are under 10% ownership. There's not a lot of great options today. I think these are the best guys that I can write a narrative for where they are viable, are these backup running backs who would have a shot if there's an injury or in garbage time.
Neil, if Sean McVay called you out like last week and was like, listen, man, fuck it. We just, nothing's working for us. We want you to play quarterback this week. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think you could throw for 70 passing yards?
Fuck no. On the Rams?
That's the first time you've ever used that word on a show.
I mean, got to be emphatic about this one. No, I could not.
Do you think you could throw for 20? Little dump off action, maybe?
Oh, on the Rams, it's questionable. I think on the Niners, I could throw for 20 again, just dumping it off. On the Rams, I'm maybe against this defense, just because maybe Cam Akers could get it done for me, but I don't know, probably not.
Okay, Matt, do you think you could throw for 20 yards?
No.
Okay. What about on the Chargers?
Okay, actually,
on the
you know
Chargers.
what? I think there's a chance. You would have to get incredibly lucky, right? Like, because if there's any sort of rational
possible
coaching happening, which clearly there isn't because I'm behind center, but they're going to get the ball out quickly, right? It's going to be a lot of quick passes, and so maybe it's a broken tackle that I get, and suddenly I did no work. I just like threw it directly to sideways.
Dude,
Maybe
the
I could do
all-out
that.
blitzes would be insane, though.
To be clear, that's what I'm saying when I say that I might be able to throw 2 touchdowns
Right,
over
you're
a
not
full
talking
season playing for them.
downfield.
I'm not saying I'm making plays. I'm saying I'm throwing it short, and other people could maybe make plays for me.
Right. Dude, the pressure would be coming from oh my God. All right. Wide receivers here. And by the way, all the tools we're talking about, guys, there are 3 free days. 3 free days over at Stokastic if you want to take advantage of it. No strings attached. Quit anytime. There's no strings attached. You're not getting charged for it. Or go to BetMGM if it's available in your state. I know some of you, it's not available in your state. That sucks. You still have some archaic laws that don't allow sports betting. But if they do, you put 10, you got to use the link. Otherwise, we can't identify who you are. We can't track it. You put $10 in and you bet it on any game, any sport, any prop. And after that prop settles or bet settles, you got 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. 2 free months. Dude, it's insane. That's a $240 value just by putting $10 in on a sports betting site, which, let's be honest, we all enjoy that stuff anyway. And you're getting 2 free months. Boom Bust Tool, Top Stack, ownership, player projections, all of the projected data, everything for every single sport. Lineup generator. Lineup generator is about to look real sweet too. You name it. Everything on the site, we got you covered. All our tools, all of our data is free to you for 2 months, and our premium Discord on top of that. So $10, use the link, deposit, sign up for the first time, put $10 on any game. And when that settles, you get 2 free months of, and $1,000 risk-free bet, up to $1,000 risk-free bet on top of that. Not either or, you get both of them. So yeah, it's a straight no-brainer, clear as day type of deal. And that picture of Eric will haunt me till the day I die. All right, let's talk about wide receivers, Matt. On the, I don't want to spend too much time on Davante Adams. So let's talk about more from a game theory standpoint than, he's a good play.
I think if Davante Adams at the captain spot is somewhere around 20% ownership, where we were seeing him earlier. I don't know if it's changed since we've been on the show. Let me look at it real quick. We're expecting him to be owned at the captain spot 18%, 19% over on DraftKings. I'm going to be way over on that. Just because we know where the production happens for this team when it does happen. And I don't really think that the Rams defense is anywhere near what we think it is in terms of their ability to cover passes. They're still slightly above league average in terms of adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving corps. But I think the best way to play Adams is at the captain spot, just straight up from a game theory standpoint. And of course, I'm going to be with the field from the utility spot or the flex spot as well.
What about you, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? Davante Adams, he's a stud. Doesn't even have the injury concerns that we have with Josh Jacobs. Davante Adams probably one of my favorite plays on the slate. We look at the tools. He looks like we've got positive leverage in the util, a little bit of negative leverage in the captain spot, but still 19% projected ownership in the captain spot, 16% chance of being optimal. That's not like somebody I want to full fade. I'm probably going to end up honestly above the field. I'm probably going to end up at around 20% Davante Adams anyway, despite the negative leverage. He is one of the safer bets on the entire slate. I like him quite a bit. And then the util, 50% projected ownership, 53% chance of being optimal. He's just a stud. He's going to get there through PPR. He's going to get through yards, through touchdowns. He's going to have all the opportunities to score. Maybe there's some concern that they put up a big score in the first half and they just want to run it out in the second half because, they probably don't need to do all that much to put up points on the Rams or to beat this Rams team. But I think that's not a huge concern. So I think Davante Adams, looks great.
Okay. I mentioned Matt Collins. So in the 4 games since Waller and Renfro have been on the IR, right? Like I know Waller missed some time, but in the 4 games, Adams has a 36% target share, but Matt Collins is at 21%. Matt, like that's still a nice number in this offense. Then it's Josh Jacobs at 15 and drops to 12% for Foster Moreau. Then there's like basically nothing else. So Matt Collins at this price, we've seen him have some games this year where, teams make a concerted effort to take Davante Adams out of the game, which does not always work. But there have been times where Matt Collins has come in and put together some pretty fine performances this season. Like you just look at the way he's played. He had one huge game, but he's also had a bunch of respectable games as well.
Absolutely. I see it the same way. And if you're just trying to compare it, Matt Collins is getting, in terms of air yards and target share on this team, basically the same usage as Darren Waller was getting on this team. So I see him as the clear number 2 option. And for a position as volatile as wide receiver, even in a relatively good spot, we think the Raiders are certainly going to score more points than the Rams, although the defense, the secondary is okay for Los Angeles. I think the volume is good enough to chase, especially if you're fading Adams or going for a double stack with Carr. I think Hollins is clearly the second choice. And then, as you said, with Jacobs, a very popular player being the third option, everyone else in the receiving core that we're talking about for Las Vegas at tight end or wide receiver are clear tertiary options within the offense.
What do you do with the rest of these Raiders receivers?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. I think Matt Collins is the pretty clear number 2. I'm with you. He's a great play. Hasn't been getting it done, but he's had the opportunities. I think that he should be able to get there. From there, I mean, Keelan Cole at 200 is going to be the chalk. Like I think he's 200. He projects well everywhere that I've looked today. He projects as one of the best point per dollar plays on the slate. He makes a lot of sense, obviously, given his projection, given that he's 200, but he is going to be chalky. So it's just a matter of, do you want to eat that chalk with Keelan Cole? I'm probably going to have, put him in 20-30% of my lineups. I'm not going to completely fade him just because I think that he played the past several games, 69%, 67%, 65%, 57% of games of snaps, the past 4 games for the Raiders. So he appears to be the wide receiver 3 here. I think those are the only 3 receivers that I'm planning on playing from the Raiders here. It'd be obviously Davante number 1, followed by Matt Collins, and then Keelan Cole. Yeah, I think those are the only receivers I'm playing here.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. Cole's minimum salary is going to be on the field, probably running a bunch of wind sprints, but he's minimum salary, right? Like, yep. I don't know, Matt. It's not fun, but he's as cheap as they get on a team with a considerably higher total than the other team. I know Gajeski talked about him this morning. Sometimes you just have to grin and bear it with these guys.
I would like it better if it were the backup running back at that min salary, because you know that they're going to get a few spell touches here or there. It could legitimately be like 1 target. He's low on the target totem pole, but as you said, his route participation rate is up there with the other stud players on this team. He just doesn't get the ball that often.
I'll also add just that while we're talking about Keelan Cole, he is on the Raiders, which makes me like him a little bit less. If he were on the Rams, like on the team that you don't want to be stacking up, I would have a little bit more interest. But the fact that he's on the Raiders, it's possible that he could, have 6-7 fantasy points and still not be optimal, just because all of the highest scoring plays on the slate are from the Raiders, and you can only play 5 from one team. So I think that factors in a little bit, makes me a little bit more comfortable with fading him in a good number of lineups.
All right. All right. Let's move. Here we go, boys. Let's talk wide receivers for the New York Giants. This should be enjoyable.
For who?
Yeah,
you're thinking about the show you did with Gajeski.
I was going. Somebody asked if I could look at something for them from one of our tools. Someone that we work with, and a Giant stack popped up. Thank you. So it was just fresh in my mind. From the Los Angeles Rams. Thank you. Anytime I say something like that, they're like, you see something in chat. This idiot doesn't even know who's on the slate. It is the LA Rams. So, Neil, Lance, this is worse than it's been in previous weeks, and I'll tell you why. Or better, depending on how you look at it. Because now Lance McCutcheon is active. The guy, like he was out last week. So you have him, you have Atwell, you have Tutu Atwell, you have Brandon Powell, you have Van Jefferson, you have Ben Skoranek. I mean, that is 5 different players right there. I don't expect Austin Tremmel to play, but like this could just be a carousel of wide receivers coming in and off the field today.
Yeah, I hate it.
Me too.
There's too many. I don't know what. So, okay, here is how I rank the Rams receivers. I think it's Van Jefferson, the wide receiver 1, Ben Skoranek, the wide receiver 2, Tutu Atwell, the wide receiver 3. I'm not even that confident in that. So I think Jefferson is the one that I feel safest with, followed by probably Skoranek, just because he played 97% of snaps in the last game. He's the only one who's actually playing like a significant number of snaps. Tutu Atwell is probably my 3rd favorite, just because I think Tutu Atwell has that home run upside. He has the long touchdown upside. I think he's a flashy player who I have some interest in. Brandon Powell, yeah, he played the past 3 games, 31% of snaps, then 48%, in the most recent game, 41%. So decent number of snaps for Brandon Powell. But as you said, Lance McCutcheon missed the most recent game, week 13. In week 12, he had played 48% of snaps. He's sort of fun, but I'd say my order of confidence in them would be Jefferson, Skoranek, Atwell, Powell, McCutcheon. And my order of wanting to play them is probably similar. It's probably Jefferson. I don't think Skoranek's going to get that much ownership. Atwell is probably pretty close to Skoranek for me, just because I think that he's got that upside with just a single play. He can make a splash play, and then it's probably Powell and McCutcheon. I don't really know what to do with them.
Powell's actually interesting to me today because he had 3 rushing attempts last game, and like he had 3. Tutu Atwell had 4. They might just be trying to figure out ways, Matt, to get guys just to do things differently because this offense is so anemic. So like Powell caught all 3 of it, or what did he have? 4 targets, 3 or 4? I can't remember. Was it?
Yeah, and Powell also has been used in this let's try out the Deebo Samuel plays that are used against us role.
Yeah.
For a couple seasons now, or at least this whole season. And Tutu Atwell, as you mentioned, getting a little bit more opportunity than you might think if you just looked at receiving stats. But look, the bottom line is we've got 5 players projected for between 2 and 9 fantasy points. And this is one of the most volatile positions in fantasy football in DFS. So there's a lot of uncertainty here. This wide receiver core screams preseason mode to me. And that means that the Dr. Evil answer might be in play too. How about no?
I guess. I mean, it has to be yes for some of these guys, though.
You got to play one player from the Rams, but it doesn't have to be a wide receiver. I guess Van Jefferson stands out a little bit, but
so what do you like? You plan on just fading all these pass catchers? I mean, some of them are kind of expensive, but others are like, I'm going to be taking some shots on Lance McCutcheon, as gross as it feels. He's minimum salary coming off a 4-target game before he got injured. Like, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. It's brutal, but I guess like if we think this offense is so bad and it's so unpredictable, would we not want to just load up our salary on the team that has the higher total and then punt the cheap player or punt the Rams player?
That's probably the most likely way I'd play it.
Yeah. What about you, Neil? Obviously, if you're playing 150, it's not all going to be that way, but just your overall philosophy on this.
Let me throw another idea at you.
Please.
John Wolford. Yeah, I know you guys don't want to play John Wolford. Yeah, I mean it's gonna be spread out for me who I'm playing from the Rams. I'm probably not doing a lot of 5-1 Rams stacks. I might have a few. I'm actually I think that is one way. I just say this because I'm looking at the very first lineup that I just crunched out is a 5-1 Rams stack, which surprised me. I was not expecting to see that in my lineup set, but I do. I guess I will have at least one, most likely. But it's ugly. You don't want to play a lot of Rams. Most likely in most lineups, you don't want to play more than a couple. They're not going to project all that well. But yeah, I'm spreading out my expert. I don't feel confident in any of these Rams, to be honest. I'm going to be playing a little bit of Jefferson, Skowronek. Atwell's probably the guy that I'm actually playing the most from the Rams receivers, and then Powell and McCutcheon as well. But yeah, not a ton of confidence in any of these guys.
I'm trying to see if there's anything out there that.
Well, so I just got the latest that I'm seeing, which I don't think that it's all that meaningful because it's Underdog. Maybe it's just reporting exactly what Winky was saying earlier. It says John Wolford. So this is 17 minutes ago. John Wolford currently taking snaps with Ram starters in warmups Thursday per Gary Klein. And NBC Sports Edge reported John Wolford appears likely to start for the Rams. Again, none of them have any more information than we have. They're just seeing what's happening on the field. So yeah, we don't really have any great info here.
All right then, fellas. Well, that's what we have for now. Any super chats? Yeah, Shane, did LA just grab Baker to spite San Francisco? Nah, dude, they're doing him a favor, if anything.
Yeah.
This is a great situation to at least a low, in terms of salary for a quarterback, a low salary shot. And I was looking at some of the work Kevin Cole, formerly of PFF, was saying that Baker Mayfield currently looks like a slightly below 50th percentile quarterback in terms of his last 500 plays. Not as terrible as we think he is, like dead last.
Yeah, sure. But San Francisco didn't put a claim in for him even.
I think they just wanted to pay him less. They didn't want to cover the rest of the contract.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying like if you're spiting San Francisco, but they didn't put a claim in for him, I don't know.
Sure.
Doesn't matter. Vinny, honestly, the Rams are 3-9. Baker's just a backup. They have no shot at the post. No, of course not. Like, I don't think any of the three of us have suggested that Baker would start so they can go on a run and win out.
Mm-hmm.
No,
definitely not suggesting that whatsoever.
Any other thoughts at wide receiver, fellas? And then we'll move on to tight end here.
No, I think we've covered wide receivers pretty well.
Hey, Neil, we have 10 minutes to go. We have 183 likes before we get to 500. Still 2,100 people watching. I mean, usually you have your finger on the pulse here.
Yeah.
Think we can get the 500?
I might have overestimated our audience a little bit. I said I thought at least 5 could find that like button. It sounds like we've got less than a quarter right now, so may have overestimated them a little bit. But I think that we've got some smart people in this audience. I talk to them regularly. I talk to our audience. I know we've got some smart people who are going to be able to find that like button and get us to 500. I think it's locked up. I think we got it.
Okay, yeah, you're dialed in. You know the people.
Yeah, a lot of confidence.
Don't disappoint Neil Orfield, please. Don't disappoint the Showdown Shaman on a Thursday night football. We only got a couple of these left. Let's make them worthwhile. Tight ends, Matt. Man, it's like right now you have Tyler Higbee, he's just another one in the bucket, right? With these wide receivers, in my opinion, at least. And then Foster Moreau, who's like, he's the epitome of fine when it comes to a cheap tight end.
And both these players projected within 0.3 points of each other today, Laffy. Look, Moreau's on a team that's projected to score more points. And so if I had to lean one way, I would try to get up to the slightly higher salary of Moreau. But ultimately, Higbee might be the option that whatever quarterback plays for the Rams leans on here. He's up there with the highest median projection for our Rams receivers. I do actually think Higbee is a player that I will be at least with the field on. He looks okay to me. I know this is a player who, since Stafford has gone away, he's also moved away from being a target hog, but I still think Higbee is a viable option, especially when we see backup quarterbacks consistently dump the ball down shorter A-dot passes, which tight ends tend to gobble up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's not exciting, but nobody's exciting on this team. So, Neil, two things. One, we're north of 500 likes. So your original assumption was accurate.
I should have never lost faith.
No. Now
Keep the
you've,
faith.
yeah, now you've, I'm not sure the viewers trust you. They're like, Neil liked us.
To be clear, I said that 50% could find it, and still not 50% are there, right? So
That's a good point.
I was correct on that. I maybe overestimated them relative to the 50% that I said could find the like button.
No, you're right. We're at 25%.
Yeah, so it's still pretty low relative.
Neil's a numbers guy here.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the tight ends?
Yeah, so I'm going to play some Foster Moreau. I'm going to play some Tyler Higbee. I think both look, pretty good. They're both solid options. They both play most of the snaps for their teams. Tyler Higbee played 84% of snaps for the Rams in their most recent game. The game before that was 59%, but he was hurt mid-game and missed at least a quarter. So I don't think you can really take much away from it. He usually plays 80+% of snaps. It is a question. It is questionable because we don't really know. Is John Wolford starting? Is Baker Mayfield starting? Is either of them going to be able to get him the ball? But as you said, there is the benefit of, a new quarterback sometimes maybe more likely to dump it to the tight end. I think Tyler Higbee is certainly in play. He's certainly at least to the extent of all of the other wide receivers on the Rams. Not a ton of confidence, but I think he's in play. And then Foster Moreau he plays over 90% of snaps every single game for the past several weeks that Darren Waller has missed. He's a great play.
All right, let's get to kickers and defense here. Nice. We've set ourselves up nicely, boys. We paced it well, and we'll build a lineup after that. I'm already on record. I like the Raiders defense quite a bit today. Rams defense, I don't think is ever crazy in a showdown slate. And then both kickers, perfectly reasonable. But I do like this Raiders because I think with the fact, Matt, that the Rams the Rams offensive line has allowed 42 sacks combined from Perkins, Stafford, and Wolford. Like, that's a problem. That's a real problem. They can't protect their quarterbacks, and their quarterbacks aren't going to have any easy outs like Cooper Kupp on a quick slant. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And we don't even know if the quarterback is going to know the playbook if a certain one is playing. And look, while the defensive stats for the Raiders this season are anything but spectacular, they do have some playmakers. They got Crosby on that defensive line, and it is a situation that is an area of weakness for the Los Angeles Rams as well. If you look at the top leverage scores, it's actually Daniel Carlson, the kicker for the Raiders, and that makes all the sense in the world. But him and the Raiders defense just undeniably good in the tools, and for obvious reasons. I think you got to be over the field when you look at their ownership, just shy of 30% total in the captain and the flex.
Neil, defense, kickers, what do we got?
Yeah, so I mean the Raiders obviously look great against whoever is starting for the Rams. The Rams have given up the third most sacks of any team this season. It's not a great defense, but it's a great spot for the Raiders defense. So certainly in play, the Raiders. I think in my article I wrote that Daniel Carlson leads all of the kickers and defense, both in terms of raw projection and point per dollar projection for us. So Daniel Carlson looks great. But again, we talk about how you need to play somebody from both teams.
You guys, we just got it. We got the worst. Wolford will start Thursday, though Baker Mayfield is expected to play at some point.
Very rude of you to just cut in when Neil was talking, but
yeah.
This is what you said.
I know.
I hate it so much.
Oh God. So Baker's gonna play, huh? Matt, can you read that one more time, please?
This is from Underdog NFL lineup alert. John Wolford will start Thursday, though Baker Mayfield is expected to play at some point. Maybe some point next month. We don't know. But it sounds like he's gonna play.
This is so dumb. All right. So, Neil, I mean, we can just scrap building a lineup at this point. This is more important. What are you doing now we haven't really covered? Like, what are you doing now? Are you still going to play some Wolford and hope that maybe this is just smoke and mirrors?
I am. I'm going to play some Wolford. I'm a lot less confident in it. I actually would have preferred just not getting that news because everything is like Wolford trending towards starting. So I've been assuming that Wolford is going to start. I hate that they say Baker Mayfield will play at some. They're not even saying like Baker Mayfield could play situationally. Now they're saying he will play. Of course, who knows where they're getting this information, what the wording is, but it does take away some of my confidence. But I'm still playing John Wolford. I think he's going to be like 0% owned, not 0%, but I think it could be. I think it could be like under 15% owned as a starting quarterback who could potentially see big minutes. So I do still have interest in John Wolford.
But this is the scenario. This is why we talked earlier in the show about the hypothetical of Derek Carr being spiked up in ownership, because here it comes.
Yep.
Everyone who's sitting with their lineups in this last 5 minutes before lock is sitting there tweaking and adjusting, getting off of the Rams quarterbacks, and probably many people are getting to more Derek Carr.
Yep. That's a really good point. I think that's a really, really smart thing to bring up early in the show, and a really good point now that Derek Carr is going to get a lot of ownership and maybe adjust a little bit accordingly.
Well, we have less than 3 minutes to go. I think it'd probably be more prudent for us just to go over any final thoughts here, any last tweaks that people should be making or considering, Matt. Anything you got here that is relevant now that we've gotten this news? Anything else that would affect the rest of the slate, what you're doing?
So here's the weird part about the NFL. Even with all of this turmoil, all this uncertainty about who's going to produce for the LA Rams, if you look at the lines, if you look at the implied totals, there's still way, way more of a chance that the Rams win than we sort of imply by the way we're talking about this game.
Yeah.
And so if you want to play a running back because you think they're going to be secretly in control in the second half, or go to the kicker in Matt Gay or something like that, or even the Rams defense, which has a slightly higher leverage score than you might think on the boom bust tool today, I don't think that's a crazy idea. It doesn't happen all that often, but when you're right, you're moving away from so much of the pack that it's worth considering, especially in the largest field tournaments like the one Neil is playing.
I mean, the implied win probability on them right now is what? Let's see. It's not low at all. It's not like people might think this is like a 5. Not even close.
Yeah.
They're plus 235.
It's a really good point.
Yeah. What is that? I can't do it off the top of my head.
It's about 30%.
Yeah. So 3 in 10 times, you guys think about that. It goes the way that we don't expect. That's way more than zero. Way, way more than zero.
It's pretty crazy to think about. Neil, close us out, man. Final thoughts here before we wrap this one up. And as always, we appreciate you guys hanging out from start to finish here. And even those of you guys who jumped in late.
Go John Wolford and go your best ball teams. This is the final week of the regular season for best ball. Very exciting time of the year for football fans, for best ball DFS. Your season long leagues as well. This is the final week for most of us of the regular season. So good luck with your season long stuff. Good luck with your best ball. And of course, good luck with your DFS.
Hey guys, appreciate you. We'll catch you back here next Thursday. More Thursday night showdown football. Show us some screenshots over there at Stokastic Hall of Fame tonight too. Get your free month. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let's get some wins for the boys. All right, we'll see you guys. Peace.